Hey, Gundam Maniac! Welcome to the Gundam Explained Show. I am talking slowly to let the sound slowly fade out. It is an awesome song, but it's going to fade. I wish I could be listening to it right now, actually. I got to figure that out so then you guys can too. Guests on here.
Yeah, people probably assume that you're just jamming out before the stream starts, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, we sit in complete silence.
I know, it's just...
We have to all be quiet. And
No, I wish I could be listening to it because it is kind of that song to like pump you up. But no, it's let's see, it's August 17th, 2023. I am your host, Adam Blue, and joining me as always is the other guy that I stream with the day before, Steven. So Steven, how you doing, man?
good. I'm still alive, so
that's good. Yeah. After all that 3D modeling you were doing yesterday, I didn't know if you were gonna leave your chamber, like your sweatshop shop chamber of because and if anyone hasn't watched it, link in the description. Yesterday's stream in Blender, right? Yeah. Yes. Like customizing these specific parts for the 7th Gundam. It's like a whole job. I feel like you're like showcasing like a whole job skill set.
Yeah, it's like working in a little toy factory. Sometimes I feel like one of Santa's elves.
I wonder if Santa's elves are using software to now produce.
I would hope so. They're not building wooden horses anymore.
That's a good point. So it's not like they're out of a job. They're just now using the computers to design.
Exactly right.
Wow. Well, also another awesome treat for today. We've got Ashley. Some of you may not know her. She's actually been helping me out on the social media side of things, doing a lot of those pretty neat, engaging Twitter posts, asking some pretty cool questions, getting people more involved. It's helped me out a lot. So, Ashley, good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing good, and I'm really excited to be here. Nice to finally meet Steven, especially, and see, talk to you again. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, I know, because we occasionally we'll chat like on Discord to kind of talk business more about what's going on with social, and every once in a while chat. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to learn more about you. I always love finding out how people get into Gundam and all that, and then also you have a specific hobby or interest in Japanese culture that I'm not too familiar with. So maybe you can kind of help explain that. To all of us.
You probably have a deeper appreciation for Japanese culture than Grug and Chug over here that are just like, you like you big small robots.
That's exactly how I feel. Yeah, I think it would be cool to get into that. But yeah, so that's going to be most of the show, and then we'll just get into some recent Gundam things that have been going on. But yeah, to start, so Ashley, so when did you first get into Gundam?
So I think we have to go back just a little bit.
So
growing up a little, So growing up, as a kid, I was raised on sci-fi. My mother was a huge sci-fi fan, and I grew up watching Star Trek Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Andromeda, which is my personal favorite, and Battlestar Galactica, which is another classic. And
the original or the remake?
The original.
Wow, yeah.
It was kind of funny though because growing up, I didn't have cable, so I would watch they would air it on certain networks like Fox or I think ABC, for example, and so just being exposed to that, and plus my mom, pretty much kind of got me hooked to sciencey stuff. Earlier on, I would watch even Nova on PBS about space stuff. So I've always been kind of in that kind of world. But when the anime piece came to it, back in the day, on the Fox network, there was this little block called, I think, it was called Fox Kids. And it aired a lot of shows from Saban Entertainment, Power Rangers. My personal favorite, there's this little thing called VR Troopers.
Oh yeah, VR Troopers. Remember that? Yep.
Yeah, I was so obsessed with that show back then.
Yeah, We Are VR. I remember that was the theme song.
Yes. That was one of my personal favorites. The theme song was so catchy. And of course, and they aired anime, Pokemon, Digimon, and there was this one mecha show that they aired. It only aired like the first 10 episodes. It was Escaflowne.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Steve, have you
I
seen it?
remember when I went to school and I had like a Gundam T-shirt on, people were like, "Is that Escaflowne?" And I was like, "No, no." So no,
Wow.
yeah, Escaflowne was huge back in the day.
Yeah, and what was very interesting about it too, like I think it was around 98 when they aired it, and I was I think about like in fourth or fifth grade, so I'm on the younger side. Um, very kid. I enjoyed it. It was something about the art and the story, and then just this whole. It was kind of like the term isekai, because like in the
Oh yeah.
normal, I guess like in the modern era now with anime, it was kind of like one of the first shows that incorporated that little like into another world sequence with mecha incorporated in it, and like another one being a magical knife warrior that kind of had that same
Mhm.
element. I love that show a lot, and that was like my first mecha show, and then it got off. I,
Whoa. What's
I don't
that?
know what happened.
That's amazing.
What
That was
happened? Whoa!
kind of cool.
Yeah.
I know, right?
It was like an explosion of anime appreciation. Like,
That was very unexpected.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
no, that was awesome.
um, I noticed Robert sent me a question about Mystical Knights. I have seen Mystical Knights, also a really good show. Um, but yeah, so that was kind of like my first like mecha, but it wasn't until like between like 2000 2002 because I'm not for sure on the exact year. I would stay with my relatives every like twice, no, once or twice a year, and my younger cousin who was into anime a little bit at the time kind of introduced me to like Toonami
Mm.
and Adult Swim, and that's where they would air like I think I remember seeing a clip of G Gundam and Gundam Wing when it aired. So
Oh yeah.
technically, that was kind of like my first like, oh, this is a show called Gundam. I don't know what it is, but it looked interesting enough. And I only remember watching like maybe one or two episodes of each, maybe. But it wasn't until I think 2004 when I finally got cable. So I was like freshman year of high school, and then they aired Gundam Seed, and Gundam Seed I think
Uh-huh.
was what really got me fully into the um the world of Gundam and the music side of it too, which is kind of funny. That's like where I guess the Japanese culture element kind of comes in from it because
Ah, yeah.
Gundam's yeah, Gundam Seed I think has such like amazing music. I like the story and the characters and everything, and that kind of is what integrate me into both worlds.
And that was they started introducing more like pop songs as the opening credit song,
Yeah.
as opposed to just as opposed to having a specific song that was
Yes.
kind of composed for the show. So
Mhm.
there's definitely an appreciation there. And I
Yeah,
think Seed is a really good jumping on point for a lot of people, who are
Right.
just getting into Gundam.
I could see that.
Obviously Adam and I being big UC elitists, we have different opinions, but no, I mean, like
You
at
see
that
it too?
time, there was no way to really watch the original Gundam. So it's like
Yeah.
you either have Gundam Wing, G Gundam, or Gundam Seed, and those are kind of standalone. You can appreciate them. You don't have to know 40 years of lore.
Exactly. Oh, that's what makes it fun to kind of dive into Gundam a little bit more too.
Yeah, yeah, that's the interesting thing about Seed because it does and I only connected the dots recently because I watched Macross. Have you seen Macross, Ashley?
Yes, so I think I've seen like was it Macross Frontier, I think?
There's a
I think
lot,
that's the
and I don't
title.
even know them all.
Yeah,
I saw the
but I have
first
seen it.
yeah, I saw the first season or show, and then
Hmm.
I saw that it had like that idol singer, which is
Yes.
done in Seed. But
Hmm.
as someone that doesn't have a background in like watching anime or Japanese culture, I realize
Hmm.
that's kind of a part of Japanese culture,
Yes,
right? Because
I
I think
believe
a
it
lot of
is.
like stuff that you're into also has to do with singers and groups and stuff like that. Can you dive into that a
Yes.
little bit?
Yeah, so like kind of when we were talking about seeds, so around that time, what really got me into like the music part of it, one of the singers, Nami Tamaki, she sang a lot of songs from like all the different Gundam shows, specifically Seed and Sea Destiny,
Oh,
I really got into her music, and also TM Revolution, which is another amazing artist. You know, he's obsessed with Gundam too, and he even had his own character in Seed,
wow.
Seed Destiny that is. And I think because of them, listening to the music, I really love just the sound of how Japanese is, and getting into it, I started to. That's when I guess I got more into like the manga and stuff like that. And there was this like, I remember this one manga I was reading. It kept mentioning this group each different manga I read, and they were called Morning Musume, and they're like one of the oldest like active groups in Japan right now. Um, and so getting into that world and getting into it, that was like another fandom I was a part of too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was kind of like the first fandom I got really involved in, and I'm still kind of um involved in as well because I've been a fan of that music, well, this specific group, and there's like a umbrella of groups called Hello Project. That's a whole nother topic. Um, and I've been a fan. I think it's been 18 years now since I've been a fan. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is
Do you speak?
this?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was
Mhm.
gonna say, is that similar or different than K-pop? Like, I know it's
It's different,
different in
yeah.
terms of where it comes from, but is it the same sort of thing?
It so basically kind of like so J-pop kind of has been around. I think they took homage from like, the Western music back in the 50s. And
Oh,
so it really took off from like the 50s onward. They like with Johnny's Entertainment being the first to kind of establish that whole, hey, these are, this is like our Japanese equivalent of the Jackson 5 and so forth.
I
So
see.
yeah, and so because that idol culture kind of started to take off in Japan, then probably around like the early, like maybe early to mid late 90s, Korea really just took a little bit of the, I guess, the element of um, Japanese idol culture, and they kind of structured more of a tight knit system. So, when they, grab like a random child or something from
Uh,
auditions or whatever,
yeah.
they have like this rigorous training system and all that. And yeah, and that's why like, and I guess like because of how K-pop is structured, it's much more open. While Japan being like, I think currently it's the second most, I guess because they have Sony, they're on top of the world, like when it comes to like the music scene. Um,
Yeah.
that's why, like, they're kind of more closed off, so things are kind of not as accessible. Well, I guess in Korea, it's like, hey, we want to get to the West a little
Oh,
bit,
I see.
so
That's
yeah,
why
So,
I've
so
always heard.
Japan is like new types, and Korea is like cyber new
exactly.
types.
That's funny.
That
'Cause
is
that's
the
why I hear
best
K-pop
comparison.
a lot. Like, I hear that a lot, but really it seems like, again, the
Mhm.
Japanese sort of really kicked that off, and being, like,
Yeah.
super into metal, like, there's a lot of metal that I like that then is really popular in Japan, and then in Japan,
Hmm.
they then created almost their style of metal, which then I kinda
Yeah.
went back into metal that I would listen to outside of Japan, I guess, yeah, to put it,
Yeah.
where, in the '80s, they really started doing a lot of things with, like, double bass and just the way they would
Hmm.
play the strumming that then was incorporated into video games.
Yep.
But then it just came back to Western metal, which I think is interesting, where, yeah, and I see that a lot, like with Star Wars, where Star Wars
Yep.
was influenced by Japan, or George Lucas was influenced by Japanese filmmaking to make Star Wars, and then Star
Exactly.
Wars influenced Gundam. It's like a, the kind of circle where like Japan knows how to take the essence of something and really find the core fun
Exactly.
or joy of it and reproduce it a lot. Yeah. And what were you gonna say, Steven? I don't know if you forgot by now because I was talking
Oh,
so
well,
much over
I was gonna ask Ashley, so
Hmm.
do you speak Japanese, or at least do you understand enough Japanese to like when you're listening to the music that you're understanding the lyrics, or do you really just appreciate it for the melodies and that sort of
That's a
thing?
really good question. So when I like started listening to it, I started off just like really like, oh, I really appreciate how it sounds, even though I may not really understand it. Um, it's kind of taking like appreciation with like the feeling that like an artist or a group puts into, the song that's being sang. Then over time, like as I fully got into Japanese culture, I wanted to kind of learn or at least understand somewhat. So that's why, like watching anime and listening to the music has kind of helped to build some sort of vocabulary, even though it's a more unconventional way of learning. But over time, I did, invest in classes over time, and
Okay.
I know like some, like at least some basic conversational Japanese, but when it comes to like reading it, I'm still I'm still
Oh yeah.
learning it because it's like a whole different system.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot that's beyond just because obviously, you're talking about entirely different character sets and things like that. So it's not just,
Right.
learning different words from another language. But similar to you,
Mhm.
it's like I appreciate almost the lyrics as a component
Mhm.
of the music, like they are an instrument themselves, like the word, like
Exactly.
the singing. So I totally feel
And,
where you're coming from.
and Stephen, when
Yeah.
you're saying that, do you mean like when it comes to Japanese music, they tend to take the lyrics a little more seriously?
Well, no, I mean, so sometimes like I'll listen to a song and I don't even
Mhm.
necessarily care what the singer is saying,
That's
but
exactly like me.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you just
Yeah.
appreciate the notes that they're hitting with their voice, and
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
Well,
I'm sure that I've grew to some songs that I would probably not necessarily agree with.
oh, that's a good point. Well, it's funny because I heard something, and I don't know if this is accurate, but with Witch from Mercury, the
Mhm.
lyrics were telling the story. And
Yes.
yeah, and by the end of it, people were like, "Oh, it was telling the story, the lyrics." And that,
Yeah.
obviously I wouldn't know. I couldn't understand what they're saying, but that's actually pretty interesting. And a lot of times with Japanese art, there's a lot of this integrated information like within things.
Mhm.
There's usually a lot of detail about it anyway. And so I would almost think maybe I wonder if they do that with music as well.
Yeah.
So Ashley, do you notice that with their music? Like yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, like in the
Yeah.
West, the music I listen to, I don't listen to the lyrics because a lot of times it just doesn't matter. It,
Right.
you know, sometimes there's a pop song on the radio where it's about the lyrics, but the melody doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I
I like
wonder, like, if
yeah.
Japan takes that a little more seriously, you know?
That's what I've noticed too, like especially like
Cool.
from different, artists and groups I've followed over time. Like they really do incorporate not only putting some sort of like concept into the song itself, but then when they release like the music video, it also kind of brings that vision more into light. And I like how you mentioned Witch from Mercury
Yeah,
because that same exact same structure. So it's kind of incorporating, that element and kind of making it more like, especially like with the opening and closing theme animation, that
yeah,
also kind of amplifies that storytelling element too.
that's
And
cool.
that's definitely something that you get in Witch from Mercury that you don't get from other series. Like, for instance, the
Yeah.
closing credits of like Gundam Wing, there is nothing to do with
Oh, yeah.
Marina being on safari and hanging out
Yeah.
with elephants and stuff like that. That has nothing to do with anything that's going on in.
Well, yeah, that's a good point because even the original Mobile Suit Gundam, like, I love the music in it, but I don't
Yeah.
think it necessarily fits. But it
It
doesn't
doesn't.
matter because it's kinda good. Even
Mm.
the Japanese opening in Zeta,
Oh yeah,
if
Oh,
I'm thinking correctly, like, it doesn't necessarily like, I think
that opening song is a bop.
yeah,
it is. Yeah.
the opening theme that they added for, like, the Western release of Zeta, like,
Hmm.
fits perfectly, but
Yeah.
the Japanese one was good too.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
kinda funny how that works.
Hmm.
But yeah, so the only experience I have with, like, I guess, Japanese music in a way where I've seen it seep
Yeah.
in is, because I'm big into metal, is someone mentioned it in the chat, but baby metal. Because
Yes. Baby, that was
huge
awesome.
into metal, I love Judas Priest, and even baby metal went on stage with lead singer Rob Halford of Judas
Yes.
Priest, which that blew my mind. And it's
Oh
pretty
yeah.
cool because the music in general in baby metal is like the way they play the metal. Most of the time, it's like the metal
Yes.
I like, where it's the high speed double bass. A
Hmm.
lot of the picking work on the guitar is like my type of thing.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's would you say that metal is pretty popular in the music scene in Japan, or is that more underground?
Um. So when you was mentioning earlier about, like back in the 80s, like when they created, I think it was called, Visual K, kind of
Yeah,
taking that homage to like glam rock
like glam
back in the
rock. Yeah,
day. Yeah, I think, rock still has I think, especially, only went to Japan once back in 2018, but I
nice.
think it was present, it definitely, I would say with Visual K, it definitely had its presence. It's kind of like embraced a little bit more like, with pop music, which is kind of standard.
Mm.
But I don't think it was like swept up under the ground. It was just more open. So a lot of people are saying like, oh, okay, these are Visual K artists. Okay. I mean, I
Oh, I
like it,
see.
but but sounds cool.
No, that's interesting because, and I could be getting this wrong. It's been a while. I think
Yeah.
there's a band called Japan X, or maybe just X,
Yes.
where they play some pretty good metal that started in the '80s, but they had that Visual
Mhm.
K style that whereas in the West, that
Mhm.
look in the music, like the glam rock is different from metal, but
Yeah.
for an outsider, that might be the same thing. So I can see in Japan they're like, oh, that glam rock look is interesting, and they're playing metal. So then that's how it kind of morphs in Japan. At least from my point of view, it seemed to be that way. So whereas and what's interesting about that then is I would hear a lot of these Japanese bands. Um, one's called Sex Machine Guns. It's a play on Sex Pistols, but Sex Machine
Yeah.
Guns, and it's again they play like the really fast paced. They have more of a poppy appearance, but they play the more fast paced metal that would be more associated with like Slayer or something in the U.S. And then
Mhm.
in school, back when I was in school, you'd see the kids wearing the Slayer shirts, and they were separated from, the people wearing anime shirts are separated from people wearing the sports jerseys. And I wonder if like Japan, that was a different thing. I don't know. Um, I
Um,
It would be
mhm.
interesting to see during my time
Yeah.
or our time. We're kind of the same age group, like
Yeah.
high school in Japan. What were the groups, and was it as
Yeah.
granular in the sense that it was in the West?
Mhm.
Or was it more like the appropriation of metal was seen more of like a poppy thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
When
interesting.
you mention like the scene,
Yeah.
I actually remembered when I went to Japan around December 2018. So it was before Christmas time, before it got too crazy. When I went, a friend of mine, she's really into Visual K. So she actually bought, I think they do have like a lottery system in order to free the entertainment tickets. But she was able to get like I guess 2 days where we got to see the Gazette. Wow. Was that the
Balloon celebration. There you go.
I don't know what's going on.
I'm
um
sure some webcam software
yeah, probably.
happens nowadays.
But when I went to the Gazette concert, it was so fun. And just seeing like just the Japanese fans line up, they were in rocker attire. They had that kind of like
Mm,
goth kind of emo kind of scene aesthetic
yeah.
that you would see in the West, and it was really cool. And of course, they were to themselves and they were with their group of friends, but just kind of seeing that whole side and just seeing how people interacted, and then just seeing like the band itself was also a fun experience too.
Yeah, because it makes me think sometimes, like for instance, with Power Rangers, like how
Hmm.
if I was Japanese and I see this other country take the Super Sentai and then make it all different, change like the story, and then but it's like the same characters,
Yeah.
the costumes, but then mixing costumes or reshooting brand new scenes that like the
Or
White
like
Ranger.
the yellow. I was gonna say the Yellow Ranger was a man.
Yeah. Yeah, and having the
Yeah.
White Ranger in with the other Ranger scene where that wasn't like, I would be like, "Whoa, that is awesome." And I think that's a lot of what I get out of, like, Japanese art and the culture I see,
Hmm.
where it's like they're taking things I like, and they're able to because they think it's exciting, and then they kinda, change around. But then we do the same thing, so it's not like that's a
Yeah.
Japan only thing. I'd like that kinda cross-cultural way that art is used. Like,
Hmm.
something starts somewhere, but then the different cultures have their different takes on it, and it's cool because really getting
Yeah.
into Gundam and then anime and more Japanese stuff, I realized, like, have I always liked Japanese stuff and just didn't know, or is it because it's new to me? Because then I look back and I'm like, man, some of my favorite video game soundtracks are Japanese composed. Some of my favorite video games are Japanese. You know, and I would even say Japan revolutionized gaming, because we had, sure, the Atari, but then when the NES came out, that became a mainstream thing. So it's kind of interesting to think how much, like Japan tends to do that. So what about Gunpla building? When did that start with you? Has that been just a recent thing?
It was a recent thing. So what was really interesting is like the night before, I was like thinking, because I'm building the aerial too currently.
Nice.
I'm almost done with it though. I just finished the arms like early this morning. But I got into Gunpla around The Witch of Mercury when that started airing. And what was funny is when I was thinking back, like every time I watch a Gundam series, I was more focused on like the characters and the story, and then for some reason the mobile suits were like an afterthought. And it wasn't, and then it wasn't until I watched The Witch of Mercury, and then I started to see like the Ariel and the Lefrith, and I'm like, oh, these designs are pretty cool. But why didn't I notice that before with the other Gundam series? It's really odd, you know.
Well, I mean, the Ariel itself is like a character. It's not. So there's that sort of, you have a greater appreciation for mobile suits in Witch from Mercury than other Gundam series, because they kind of have a personality. They're not just these static, sterile machines.
That's a good point. And that's cool. I guess you're a case study for what Witch from Mercury did, because it's like, I think it was, and I'm seeing it more, it was really the convergence of total into character-driven anime and then total into top tier mobile suit designs, and then the model kits, because that's helped Gunpla and Bandai, because it's like super popular. I mean, I was at my local comic shop the other day, and I remember they went from just having the Ariel to now they have like every single suit that's available to buy, and it's like, wow, that's really cool to see. And so that's the thing with anime that I've learned, after watching Witch from Mercury, when I was first watching it, I was really pulled in. I was like, wow, this is really cool. It just, and this is fine, but it just didn't go all the way with what I want from Gundam. But at the same time, I thought it was interesting for me to at least like have taken my time to watch a more dramatically driven, style anime. And like, it goes back to like how, anime is just the vehicle to tell a story. But it reminds me of something the MCU only did like very sparingly. But like when they made the Winter Soldier, how that genre of a MCU movie was completely different than the other ones, and now they're kind of the samey, like super CGI undercut with some jokes.
Snarky. Everybody's ironic.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought there was an interesting moment early on in the MCU where they were making different genres out of the stories, and I think that's what anime is, which is pretty interesting, because my favorite anime is, and I loved it, like not just it's my favorite anime, but it's almost some of my favorite things to watch now. It's like the 80s and early 90s, like the sci-fi horror action stuff. Like if it's cyberpunk with robots and then like gory, I don't know what it is, but like that's such a cool aesthetic in storytelling. Like I've just finished Bubblegum Crisis, and I think that is like one of my. Have you seen that, by the way? Have you seen it? Yeah, that's got to be one of my favorites now when it comes to anime. Like I had just saw was a Gunbuster, which I thought was excellent. But then I saw Bubblegum Crisis, and I'm like, man, this is so good. And I think it's really neat that. Well, and what's interesting is I've been trying to find and haven't found any like modern types of anime that does that. I feel like there's a couple aspects. One, it's the art, the way that it's drawn,
and then a little darker and grittier.
Yeah, it's less darker and gritty, and less dirty looking. Like it's the detail to make things, have that gritty look. And but it just could be I haven't stumbled upon it, or it just doesn't make as much money as Spy Family stuff.
I think that's kind of like it's like a lost art, that style of anime that
Okay.
that you're talking about. It reminds me of like the kind of like heavy metal cartoon
Yeah.
that kind of 80s and 90s animation that you don't see it in the West anymore either. Like everything is sort of like the Steven
That's
Universe
true.
style or that kind of
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just one of
that's
those things.
right.
It's just like it exists in its own time. Nobody does that anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah, that actually makes sense thinking about it, like how modern cartoons, animation in the West, everything's exaggerated. Now, I remember like X-Men,
Yeah.
that cartoon, I loved it. It tried to do like realistic in a way, even though the detail was a little off sometimes, looks.
Mhm.
And I think like the Batman animated series then started this design change where then everything had like these
Mhm.
edges to it, like or exaggerated edges and stuff. And even like modern cartoons, like I would even say they brought back uh I think it's DuckTales and then another Disney
Yeah.
property, but they're super exaggerated abstract
Mhm.
proportions. Which is it they were abstract proportions back then and that was just the most we had seen, or now it seems like it's easier to draw because you can just do something abstract and it doesn't, I don't know, but I do find that interesting how there's waves of animation design. And yeah, like you said, Steven, it's almost like then it's lost because then like
Mhm.
people move on, like people that are influenced by that move on and do different things.
Yeah.
um I'm actually excited about the new Metalocalypse movie that's coming out this month because
Mhm.
it's that animation is not seen as much. It's based on that like
Mhm.
ambiguously gay duo on Saturday Night Live, that type.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's and then they had the show Metalocalypse, then there was a movie like 10 years ago, and then like this is the movie that closes it off, and I'm excited about that. But well, so Ashley, what are some of your favorite then anime? Like not talking about Gundam, but just
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So one of my all-time favorite series is Full Metal Alchemist. I
Okay,
love the
Great. Great
story.
show.
I've heard of that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and what was so funny is like getting into Full Metal Alchemist is like for some reason like if I had to compare between like the original that came out in 2003 and then the Brotherhood, I guess it came out like in 2011, I think. I for some reason I still have a close connection to the 2003 version, just because I like the opening and closings more. And even though it didn't tell the full story, based off of the manga, it has its own little charm, and I guess I'm just more attached to it. But Brotherhood is still as good and still has, good music, but for some reason I still prefer that one over it. And I'm recently collecting the manga. They re-released it, and it's like a hardcover version of it, and it's very. I'm just like it's like I think it's like 18 volumes compared to the 26, so it's kind of like
Oh,
multiple volumes into one. And I just love it, the story and everything. And then I like romantic comedy type of shows, so like Fruits Basket. Really huge into magical girls like Cardcaptor Sakura, Sailor Moon, as an example. Those would be a few of my favorites.
mm.
I have a long list though.
No, that's cool. I feel like someday I have to try some of these more. Yeah, like where it's why would I watch a romantic comedy cartoon? Like, but maybe that
Right.
it's a good story. Again, it's the
Yeah.
animation is the vehicle. And
Mhm.
especially like with my wife. My wife really isn't into things that are gory or a lot of action. She likes stories, especially
Ah.
character stories. So I wonder if that's maybe a way to
Mhm.
bridge our interests where it's like, oh, here's some anime
Yeah.
that's like kind of character driven stories. And, yeah, I might try that sometime. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So another thing, am I mistaken in that you're into video games also?
Yes. So I love I'm not like a huge gamer though, like I
Yeah.
used to. I mean, I mainly play like my Nintendo Switch. I do have an Xbox, but I'm still trying to get into like trying to find games on the Xbox platform because it is my first system, I guess, outside of the Nintendo side
Yeah.
of things. And I'm trying to like get into Monster Hunter more than late, trying to get used to that system and stuff.
Yeah, no, because yeah, we're Steve and I big on video games. We're always talking video games and all that, and that's the thing. There's that crossover, like with Japanese culture and video games.
Yeah.
What are some things you're playing right now?
So I'm more into like Pokemon. So I've been playing like the new Pokemon game that came out, Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah.
So I'm halfway through it, and then they just released a DLC for it. And I think the first DLC should be coming out, I think either sometime this month or next month. And then there's like the last half of it comes out, I think sometime later in the winter time. I played that mainly, and then some Monster Hunter, like Monster Hunter
Oh,
stories.
yeah.
I did play a game not too long ago that had kind of a Gundam. Yes, I think there was a Gundam tie-in. It was Dynasty Warriors, but I played that, I think,
Oh, yeah.
on my
Yeah.
cousin's console, and that was really good too.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, there's the Dynasty Warriors Gundam games. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Dynasty Warriors, even just like the Dynasty Warriors game, gave me such an appreciation for ancient Chinese history, like learning about the romance of the Three Kingdoms and like that era of Japan, or not Japan, China, sorry. So that's a very cool video game series.
Yeah, I feel bad because like I have a Switch, but I like haven't been playing it as much, and this is a sad reason, but I think it's really because it's not like HD, 4K, 60 FPS. You know, I'm so used to that with my PC. It's like
exactly.
but at the same time, it's like Nintendo always tends to come out with those games that are just super high quality in terms of like the content. You know, like like that latest Zelda. Like I keep hearing so much about it. Like there's so much to it. I'm hoping like if they come out with a Switch 2, which that's the rumor next year, then I wonder if they'll then have like the game's 4K. I don't know if it'll be remastered or
I hope so.
backwards compatible. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's it's one of the things that I've always given Nintendo credit for is that the gameplay itself always comes first.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about how great Baldur's Gate 3 is and like how that's game of the year potentially, but I've never seen anybody like hyping up the gameplay. It's like, look at how gorgeous the graphics are. Look at this 40-minute long cutscene.
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't. I would rather watch hours and hours of people streaming whatever their random builds are in Tears of the Kingdom, because obviously they're having fun with the mechanics of the game.
Yeah, that's the thing with Baldur's Gate 3. Like I hate to hate on something, but like when I was watching, like people are hyping it so much. So I've been watching videos of it, but the gameplay is kind of that classic RTS, like, or not RTS, but role-playing turn-based thing where you sit there, you choose what you're going to attack with. Sometimes that works, and I think that's what's weird. Like I like the Shining Force, SD Generation, Genesis, those style like turn-based games, because I feel like it's more involved and I could make the wrong move and then lose my unit. But like when it's like and I want to say, so Steven, I don't know if you can help with this. The Baldur's Gate RPG versus like a JRPG. Like what is the combat differences, would you say?
I mean, I would say it's really just a difference of like perspective, because your typical JRPG, Final Fantasy style game, you're kind of like everybody's on one side, everybody else is on the other side.
Yeah.
So I guess Baldur's Gate kind of introduces that level of three-dimensionality to it. You can move around. Clearly the gameplay was so exciting. It flipped Ashley upside down. Or is that just me?
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, it's not on the stream. It's like she's frozen.
Oh no.
Oh well, yeah. Ashley, if you can come back, I thought she was just smiling at our conversation.
Well, and like Ashley was saying, big Pokemon fan. Like I enjoy the turn-based combat in Pokemon more than I would in like a Baldur's Gate.
Okay, that is a good point, because while I don't play Pokemon, oh yeah, she left. She might jump in. I think if she clicks on that link, she'll come back in. But speaking of the Pokemon combat, though, like there's something about it where it seems more interesting than a JRPG combat. Like I almost feel like, and I could be wrong, and I don't want to like hate on this, but like like JRPG, I think is more about the story. So like even the combat is almost played out like that. I mean, I don't know.
No, I think that it's the same thing with like Baldur's Gate is it is a story driven,
Yeah,
the narrative
that's true.
is the focus. And so yeah, the combat's going to suffer. It's a little bit more tactical, but I mean, like I said, even I would say Pokemon is more tactical than than a Baldur's
Oh,
Gate
okay.
because
That's a
you're
good.
having to balance your Pokemon type and which Pokemon you're going to put out first and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of considerations that go into it.
No, I think that you putting it that way kind of helps me understand. And it looks like Ashley might be loading in here,
And
but
these are
yeah,
just my opinions, like
no, right. Yeah, I think that's what's so weird. As much as I love gaming, it's like that whole like idea of I don't play these games. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But yeah, you saying how it's like tactical, like I think that is what I like about like the SG generation games. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, Ashley, looks like you are loading in. We'll see. It's still loading on our side, so um, we'll just wait. But speaking of games, real quick, in GBO2 today, they released a suit that I didn't even know existed. So there's the Hyakushiki, right? We all know that. And then there's a Kai variant, which is that
Yes.
supposed to be like a mass-produced version?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it was just
Okay,
like
then maybe just a
a
variant. Okay.
new variant prototype.
Because what's cool about the one they released today, it's the Hyakushiki Kai ground type, which I mean, yeah, it's funny just out ground. It's like by then, why would there be a ground type? But
Why not just add in the Hyakushiki high mobility ground type? Like,
yeah, but it looks actually pretty cool. Like all the armor on it, or the way it looks with the weapons, it actually looks pretty cool.
yeah.
It's just that's not something I'd roll for in GBO2. Like I'm still gonna hold on to my tokens, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure and you know what? They know that everyone's blown all their tokens trying to get the high new and
Oh
and the
yeah,
Zazby. So like
that's a good point. So I guess yeah, the suit that they oh yeah, Ashley's saying in chat some technical issues. Yeah, we'll stand by, and the show
yeah.
is nearing, but yeah, we'll just stand by and see if you come in or not.
Mhm.
Um, but have you been playing GBO2? Because I know you're sometimes off and on that.
I've been off lately. Just working on some secret projects that
Oh yeah. No, because I've kind of been on like I haven't played on PC in like a week, and on PlayStation, I've honestly, and I feel bad, I just jump into the AB rooms and I just quickly get my dailies done. Because I've just been like I play it so much, I need my little break. I think, and I don't know if it's blasphemous for me to say, but I've been having a little Gundam break in general. Like I've been watching other shows. I'm just building the Red Rider right now. I'm not like also buying other things and all that, but I think every once in a while I do this little like where I don't make everything in my life be Gundam for a little bit. And then
And if you're gonna take a break from Gundam, I'd say now is a good time since there's really not a lot going on.
yeah,
Um,
that's true. Actually, that is a good
there's
point.
no ongoing show right now. We haven't had any news on the movie or Requiem. Like, yeah, I mean, if you need some time to go watch Star Wars, now's the time to do it.
Exactly. No, that's a good point. Yeah, Asher, are you into Star Wars at all?
I'm trying to get into Star Wars, so I would like to learn more about it. But I have seen like a couple of the movies, and it's really
Yeah.
good. I just want to kind of get more immersed into it.
Yeah, it's I tell you, I loved Star Wars. Star Wars, I think though, was kind of the stepping stone for me to appreciate Gundam. And so
Ah,
I
yeah.
think it might, yeah, just watching the original movies. And I
Hmm.
think, it makes me think too, like if someone watched the 1977 movie, it's the same thing as watching the 1979 Gundam because they
Right.
look old, but
Mhm.
there's really good storytelling and themes
Hmm.
in them. And so, yeah, it'd be good to kind of, yeah, revisit that. Like if you haven't, even try out the Disney Plus shows, even though
Okay.
to me they're not that great, except Andor was really good. But
Okay.
That's what I heard.
yeah, because like you were saying how you watch like TNG and all those shows,
Yeah.
and I almost see these Disney Plus Star Wars shows like that because even though it's Disney, there seems to be this layer of low budgetness to them. And like it
Hmm.
reminds me of watching all those TNG, Hercules. There was even a Mortal Kombat TV series back. in the day
Oh
that was.
man,
You
yeah,
remember that? It
I
was made
remember that.
just like those shows, and yeah, that. But no, I wanted to bring up something else too. So I don't know if you guys saw that there's a Kickstarter going up for
Oh.
a Gundam Battlelog comic, but by Legendary, Legendary Studio that's doing the Gundam live action movie. That's just kind
Oh.
of weird that it's a Kickstarter by an American
Yeah.
company.
Right.
So
Yeah,
a couple things that I'm taking from this is, one, are they have they still not finalized what this Gundam movie is going to be? While sometimes I think some of the hints they give is that it's going to be like a builders style,
Yeah.
movie. And in this comic, it's supposed to continue the battle log thing that I think happened 2 years ago, right? Like they had the YouTube videos that were like short movies, and then they had the kits in Target.
yeah, like
So
Yeah.
was it Team Bright and Team Monster,
I don't
or
remember.
no?
I don't remember.
I'm thinking of the other,
Oh,
like the
okay.
live action series that
Oh.
they did.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. They did that. But so what I find interesting is I wonder if they're gauging interest on this, which I'm glad they're taking their time on this live action movie, to be honest. So it's
Yeah,
like this could be okay, do we go that direction? Because I feel like it's weird thinking of a live action movie here in the West, because it's like they don't necessarily have to stick with the Gundam story because they're almost appealing to a new audience. It's like this new
Yeah.
post MCU audience. Do you make it another big budget spectacle with the serious story like an MCU, or do you make it more of like a if it's like a builder's style? I almost feel like there's not an equivalent in the West to that, where it's like low stakes. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Well, they have limited time left if they're still going to roll with Timothy Chalamet as
I
their
know.
their lead. You know, he's getting a little old to be like a high school kid that builds Gunpla. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, so WebFox is saying they've kickstarted Godzilla comic and Pacific Rim comic before, and that's legendary. So,
Oh, okay.
so I guess it's not necessarily that it's going to be a builder's style live action movie, but it almost seems like that's what they're confirming by kickstarting a comic that's based on that, right? And
Yeah.
and even the director said they're trying to make something that appeals to everyone, whether you like Wing or the original. So
Yeah.
it seems like that's where they're going with that.
Yeah.
interesting.
Did you ever see what was it? Ready Player One?
I've heard of it. I need to watch it though. I have like a large movie backlog I need to
No,
get
you
through.
should watch
Very
that.
good things.
Especially, I watched it before and it was okay. But
Okay.
but I watched it again recently because it actually has the RX-78-2 in it battling.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
as I was
okay.
watching it, I then saw all these other more like Japanese centric tropes and pop culture references that I didn't know before.
And that's why I definitely read the book Ready Player One, because
Oh,
they
yeah,
only
I
got
keep
so
hearing that.
many licenses for the movie, but in the book it is everything is a reference to something. I mean, there is not a single original thought in that book. Everything
Oh,
is
wow.
Star Trek, Star Wars, and honestly, if you think about it, you know, if that were the future of the metaverse, this VR universe that we're all a part of, would there be any original thought, or would everyone just have a Gundam, and or well, this guy has a Gundam, I'm gonna have Optimus Prime. Like
Yeah.
everything would just be
Yeah.
references to other stuff.
But I
Oh,
wonder
yeah.
if that's just an inevitability with humankind. Now, I know this is getting kind of deep here for a second, but like, do all of our thoughts and our fiction eventually get to a point where it's going to be really hard to come up with things, and it's just going to be flavors of things, because even when I say I like that late 80s style anime, that's taking on like Blade Runner plus
Yeah.
anime, the super robot anime stuff, and it's just combining it, and it's just packaging it to something that's neat. Or like when I'm into like this kind of retro wave, synth wave stuff, that's just taking like the John Carpenter music from the 80s plus all the neon from the 80s. So I find that very interesting.
Yeah, everything old is new again.
Yeah, which is cool
Little
because then there's
revamp.
always those new generations, and that's another thing. And I don't know how different it is nowadays, but like I feel like there's between generations, I feel like there's a period of time where then the most of the information that would be part of the zeitgeist has been forgotten, while the newer things come into the limelight. And that's why there's like waves of, oh, this bell-bottom jeans are back, something like that.
Those
Oh, man.
callbacks, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that's part of it too, because even video games are going through that, I think, a little bit right now. Because there's like, and actually, I think it almost happens a little quicker intergenerationally. I don't know if that would really be the word, but like how there was a point where like the Fortnite model worked for like maybe a couple years, but really it's just been failing for everyone else now when they thought it worked and it seemed to be working, or just kind of like bringing up NFTs, and it's like, oh, for like a year that's like the thing, and then nothing comes of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of video games, later this month is Armored Core, the new Armored Core 6, I believe it is. And so
Yeah.
I'm super excited about that. I might actually make some content for the channel on it, even though it's not Gundam, but it's Gundam adjacent. It's X.
Yeah.
And
well, like you said, we all need a break from Gundam from time to time.
Exactly.
And I think
yeah, it's kind of that little break. Which, I was talking about. And another thing I'm going to be doing too, I've been doing during this break, I was telling you guys, I rebuilt my Detolf shelf with the lighting and the dust proofing. So I'm going to do a video on that. And there's
I remember last week's video on that too. You guys were talking about that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, when we started talking about it, that kind of helped inspire me to be like, I need to make a whole video because another thing I've been doing with this little lull in Gundam stuff is like organizing, like storing things. Like maybe I have too much and I need to put something somewhere. And so part of with my birthday gift is storage for the garage where I can like organize my things easily. And then like, I don't know. Part of me wants to get to it quickly, but then like, I don't know if you heard this, Steven, like a rule, like after 3 months, you store something. And if you don't get back to it after 3 months, you just sell it or give it away.
That's probably a good rule of thumb, I would say. It's the Marie Kondo approach. If it doesn't spark joy, get it out.
So you brought that up last time, and I'd been calling back to that when I think about. So I went to the Hasbro Pulse website, and I did cancel my pre-order for the Jabba's Palace because and it's $200, and I was like, do I really need to spend $200 on Jabba's Palace when I feel like the Star Wars isn't bringing me the joy anymore, even though I hate to say that, but then it's like I have all of these Star Wars action figures and it's like, do I sell them? They're in the attic for now. I even got the Millennium Falcon, the full scale one that the 3-inch figures go in, and it's like,
now, did the Jabba's Palace come with a Jabba and like a Princess Leia? No, it's just the vehicle.
Yeah, it's just one part of his palace, because then they sold another part that I have.
Okay.
And then they sold this other part, and they then announced separately, even though I already have Jabba, like a Jabba you can buy. The old one came with the dancer, but the new one, they don't do that anymore. They don't even sell Leia anymore.
At the very least, they could give you Salacious Crumb.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I do have one of those, though. I do have one of those. But, yeah, that's actually another interesting point, how they're, like, kind of ignoring the slave Leia. Maybe there's some bad connotations to that, but that's just part of the story. I like reenacting those things. I mean, Leia killed Jabba herself.
Like I said, I wish that Jabba figure had like gagging action, like you pull a chain on the back of its neck.
Yeah,
and it's like
its tongue's moving around. No, that would be cool. Yeah, Ashley, have you seen Return of the Jedi?
I haven't yet. I need to though.
Okay,
I need to catch up with it.
That Return of the Jedi is like the good, like schlocky, just action of the good, and I hate to say of the good Star Wars, but of the old line Star Wars.
Before the dark times.
Before the Empire. And that brings up a good point, as we're getting to the end here, because I there's this easy idea to think, oh, well, George Lucas didn't make it, so it's not good, like with some of the Disney stuff, but then in the prequels, a lot of people didn't like that, but that was all George Lucas. And then when I did the research into Char's Counterattack, I read that that was pretty much Bandai telling Tomino, no, you're not going to make this. You got to change this. And so Char's Counterattack ended up being something different than what Tomino intended. So then after Char's Counterattack, he wrote a novel to be what he intended. Yeah. And so it makes me think, I don't know if there is, and I'd like to maybe explore this on another future video. Is there an artist out there who has been able to solely make amazing things for everybody without any partnership or interference? Because even like sometimes I think Christopher Nolan, but I even think there's a lot of things, and I think it's okay that a creator does things that are not that well or not that good. Sure. I mean, I think that's just normal. Like no one's going to make the perfect thing, but I wonder if there is a creator out there that has made makes a bunch of things and they're always bangers and it's always just their input. You know, I can't think of any, but it would be interesting. And I think that goes back to what we've been saying lately, where it's a lot of times everything's a team effort. Yeah. And really a team really makes it happen.
Yeah, I mean, being surrounded by yes men is a path to the dark side for sure.
Yeah,
and I think that's, you know, if I may impart a closing thought, is like that's one of the reasons I'm really glad that you have come aboard the Gundam Explained team, Ashley, is because, you know, you've brought a whole level of expertise and engagement to the Gundam Explained social media accounts that Adam hasn't been able to do before. And so again, it's all about having a team that you trust to execute. And so now do you have like you know, any kind of like digital marketing background or experience that you are bringing to the role, or is this just all your personal like?
It's basically all my personal like experience, because like
that's impressive.
Yeah, because like I've always been into like social media growing up, and you know, just you know, every experience with like trying different platforms, you know, what works, what doesn't work. And then on top of that, like me jumping from fandom to fandom, trying to figure out like, hey, where's my community? And it was because of the Gundam community. Like I never felt so welcome in a community before, like the Gundam community. So that's where a lot of that passion comes from. Because I'm like, yes, I finally found like a group of people like you know you guys and the ones in the chat. Yeah,
that's awesome to hear.
And it just brings out a lot more passion, and that's why like just from personal experience, that's you know why I'm like, hey, I want to put as much effort as I can into you know bringing engagement in and bringing a lot more people in.
Yeah, and it's been working. I mean, I've been getting even just the engagement in general on my YouTube, and that's not what you're directly, you know, posting on. You're just doing Twitter and Facebook or whatever, and so obviously it's kind of bringing in curiosity. So I have the link to your Twitter in the description, but is there any other places you'd want people to check you out at?
Oh yeah, I can check out my Instagram. I go by 3 different names just because like I'm trying to like figure out like should I you know keep my like taco moniker going around, but there's a meaning behind the name. But anyways, it's a long story. But anyways, they can find me at Starry Ash. That's another name I go by. I think it's like underscore because the name is not original because someone already has it, but. Yeah, so you can find me on there. You can find me on TikTok, Story Ashes, story underscore ashes. I can send that all to you after the.
And I'm following you too, or the Gundam Explained is following you, so on TikTok. So if you guys want to look at the followers or who's following on TikTok, you'll find her there. Yeah, that's cool. Well, yeah. Thanks for being here. This was fun. I always love having people. And you know, thanks for all the work you've been doing and your perspective on Japanese culture. That's really just part of all this in the first place. So really appreciate that. And that's gonna be it for today's stream. Thanks for watching. Again, this will be a podcast that goes up on Fridays the next day. So if you want to listen, you can listen there. But there's the fireworks to end it off. All right. Well, see.
Also, happy early birthday to you guys too.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah, our birthdays are coming up soon. So yeah. All right, we'll talk later.